A few months ago, I finished a very bizarre game. The game wasn't bad or anything like that, it was just a weird game. An incredible game at that as well, and it was called Skate Story. Skate Story is a game where you play as a demon who enters into a contract with the devil to set him free whilst doing a mission for them, granting him the power to skate, whilst simultaneously turning him into glass, making him vulnerable to the smallest crack on the road. So, what's the mission the skater has been tasked with? Eating the moon. Obviously. As much as I tried to keep track of the plot of the game as I made my way through Skate Story, I couldn't. If you were to ask me what the story was about, I could give you various scenes, characters, and moments that are central to the plot, but I would have no idea on how to explain the connection between them. Like at one point a rabbit shows up, then you're getting a fine for falling asleep, and the philosopher is crying. I don't know, man. It works, has its fair share of beautiful story beats, and some great and clever writing. But as I finished it, played the epilogue, and rolled credits, I realized something. I had, and this is going to sound crazy, not a single emotion, clue, thought, idea, interest in what the ending of the game meant. Not at that very moment, no. I've started to think about the ending a while after having finished it, but in that very moment that I beat the game, not one emotion on the end. Yet, despite that, I was incredibly satisfied with the game because Skate Story is one of the most beautiful game experiences I've played. The ending didn't matter at all because it was the journey the game put me on what mattered most. I'll get back to Skate Story later in the video, but first, we need to talk about endings and why they're generally important. Narratively speaking, an ending should wrap up the story told in a fitting manner. The main cast and their problems are resolved, either good or bad. Some arcs end, whereas other plot points may go unresolved, leaving just enough room for the imagination to fill in the gaps. With all these combined, a good ending should leave a strong impression of the game. Maybe it's beautifully executed and it's where the story peaks, or maybe it's so good that it overshadows previous flaws or subpar moments in the earlier parts of the narrative. If the ending fails though, yeah, there's going to be some issues. You can have an overall brilliant plot, but if the ending falls short, that's the last impression the audience will have, and it'll sour their experience. In games, there are quite a few final acts that left a sour impression on the overall experience. Not enough to ruin the entire game, but enough for me to dock points from it. As a Sonic fan, a recent example of this was Sonic Superstars. Although it was a pretty great 2D platformer with fun gimmicks and levels across the North Star Islands, I just can't defend the final level and boss fight. It's very long, frustrating for its mechanics, and tedious. So much so that I actually dropped the game. I've played through 99% of the main game, but that 1% really stops me from going back to finishing it. It's sad because despite the many good qualities Superstars brings to the 2D Sonic formula, that final boss really overshadows a lot of the good. For good measure too, I will also lump in Metroid Prime 4's Green Crystal's fetch quest. Yes, I did have a pretty good rant about it in my video talking about it, so if you want a more in-depth reason as to why Prime 4's fetch quest isn't good, check out my video, linked in the description. Speaking of Prime 4, narratively speaking as well, it also ends on a pretty unsatisfactory cliffhanger as well, making the ending sting that much more. Although narratives aren't the only thing that affect the ending of a game, since there are other elements that come into play, unsatisfactory endings do play a pretty important role. Take Outlast for instance. Very good game, engaging horror gameplay, and well-told lore and story, yet its ending, base game and DLC, just didn't cut it for me. The Whistleblower DLC will get some praise from me, but the base game, no, I'm sorry. I get ending a game on a cliffhanger to leave the option for DLC, but not like this. It's sad, comes out of nowhere, and just didn't meet the expectations set up by the rest of the game. I'll even add its sequel, Outlast 2, to the unsatisfying ending list, for the confusion value. It's been a while since I've played it, but as I'm writing this script, I'm realizing that it was just such an odd ending that left me more confused than thrilled with the game. And that's a problem because both had very intriguing premises and storytelling, and when it fails to keep that same standard in tandem with their final encounters, doesn't really paint a good picture, no? Those are just some examples of games that end on a low note, but what about some games where the end enhances the overall experience? I think we can start with Nier Automata. Although Automata's journey is very important, I do think the endings, especially ending E, really elevates it. No spoilers, obviously, you should really play it for yourself, but man, it has a payoff in both its narrative and the core themes the game has been building up throughout the whole game, leaving you with a choice at the very end that is just perfect. Gameplay-wise, the ending of Donkey Kong Bonanza, released last year, is also just incredible. I do think it might have one of the greatest final acts in all of gaming. It mixes stuff up with its level design, respects the history of the franchise, and just makes one heck of an incredible final boss fight. Not only building on the core mechanics of the game, but a build-up of the entire franchise, and not many games managed to pull it off the way DK did. So you see, endings do play a very important role in many games. The lasting impressions they leave you with are vital in your reception of the game, both in the moment and in the time that passes since you beat the game, because they will generally be one of the things you'll remember best from the game. But what if the ending doesn't matter? Not that it doesn't matter, but that it's only complementary to the experience, where the parts and moments in the journey are the standout moments and what you take away from the game. Case in point, Shadow of the Colossus. Shadow of the Colossus is beautiful from start to finish. However, my main takeaways from the game were the boss fights against the many colossi, the journey towards them, the journey to scale them, and the journey of emotions the game would take me on as I slayed the colossi one by one. The ending is very minute in the grand scheme of things. As the final cutscenes rolled, I was still struck by the whole adventure that I'd been on, thinking about the countless hours spent roaming with Agro across the Forbidden Lands, or the moment that I scaled Gaius for the first time. Although the game does culminate with a boss that puts a lot of the mechanics that the game presents into one battle, Shadow of the Colossus is made up of those small and often isolated moments that together make one incredible adventure. Although Shadow of the Colossus' way of creating the journey is dependent on the player, as in how you feel going through it, the game is very linear in how your journey is to unfold. The best stories are those you write for yourself. Right? I don't know, I think that's a quote from somewhere. Anyways, that brings us knowledge-based games. Games where the game doesn't tell you much other than, here's this, good luck, mess around with the game and see what happens. Tunic and Outer Wilds are two that fit these criteria. Sadly, I can't talk much about them, because if I told you some moments in their respective journeys, it could potentially ruin the... it will ruin the potential experience you will have if you haven't played the game. Both these games have some genius ways of letting you discover how their worlds actually work, and it feels that good because you manage to connect the dots that have been there from the start, and it lets you construct the journey for yourself and make the hike onwards. It's beautiful, and I think that I've said that word a bit too many times in this video, but it's true. Now that I think about it, I want to make a video on Tunic's legendary puzzle in the future at some point, so stay tuned for that. But now that I've cleared the air on how some endings fall short when they work, and how some games put a far greater emphasis on the journey itself, I think it's finally time to talk about Skate Story. Skate Story is a very special game. Its visuals have left a mark on me. I still listen to its soundtrack since its release, and its writing and characters led to some memorable and retrospective moments. Skate Story's journey is, like I mentioned at the start of the video, is a bit off the charts when it comes to normality, and I think the bizarre and wild nature of the game is a core reason in making the journey of Skate Story so good. The first boss fight in the game is against this massive philosopher head that evaluates the skater, asking them philosophical meaning of skating and the like, to an incredible song by Blood Cultures playing as the backdrop. Characters like the philosopher, weird and abstract characters that bear semblance of some people that we can find in the real world, make you relate to them and their wild stories. Like there's a pigeon using a computer at a cafe, having writer's block and trying to find inspiration to keep writing. Or Coney, this cone-shaped dude that is trying to make everyone around him adhere to the laws of the world, who has a kind of I told you so energy. But as much as I like the characters in the game, the real journey is the one the skater goes on with his board. Skate Story follows a structure that works like this: open hub for you to explore and chat to NPCs, linear path that brings you to the next section, boss fight. It does mix up the variation, order of events, and also adds in smaller tasks to keep it engaging, but it mostly comes down to this 3-step formula, and those sections that make up the game, oh, there's something alright. The open hubs that are present in each chapter aren't just complementary elements to the linear path sections, they're these small moments that let you relax and soak in the aesthetic of the world. There's some chill beats that give off lo-fi energy, the NPCs and the writing that I mentioned, and then of course, the art. Skate Story's art is sublime, though it's a lot more present and stylized in the linear sections and boss fights. The hub areas here resemble the streets and parks you'd find in major cities, just a lot more quiet, toned down, giving you enough room to skate around with no worries, giving you enough time for you to bond with your board, practice grinding, master the timing of your favorite tricks, go up ramps, and learn how to put together your best combos. These hubs are meant to act as simple means for the game to present its story, by having you skate around to find the NPCs and their quests, so to speak. But I would spend a good amount of time just skating. Following the boss fights, the desolate streets gave me space and time to relax and reflect on what's just happened, and just appreciate that no matter how crazy everything may seem, how overwhelming the world might be, in the end, there will always be some time for you. And that time you get to be one with the board is essential. Skate Story is a pretty hard game. You can beat the game quite easily by constantly sticking to the easier combos that you can pull off regularly, but it doesn't feel rewarding. Occasionally I would do so during my playthrough, and it did not feel as good. The game wants you to push yourself, push the limits of the combos you can make, doing it at faster speeds, risk your jumps and the like. I don't know how many games have this feel to it like Skate Story does. Besides the number on the combo meter going up by comboing tricks, there is no real visual cue to make you go for those higher combos, but it just feels so good. I'd be mixing and matching my shoulder buttons to perform sick combos, learn what goes well together, find rails to grind on, and try to land my jumps, even though I still suck at that, and try to make the fastest speed jumps that I could. I'd fall and die many times over, but the skater would get up one more time and keep getting better and keep taking risks. Then we get to the moments where Skate Story soars to its greatest heights, with those linear sections where you skate across the underworld. Those moments when you teleport from one zone to the next, with Blood Cultures pumping hard in your ear. It's just incredible. For one, Blood Cultures, the band behind a major part of the game's soundtrack, whereas John Theo was responsible for the hub area music, have this sound to their songs that just fits skating. But not just skating, I'd say, but more so the vibe Skate Story is going for. The vibe that no matter how many times you get hit, it's about how many times you get back on your feet vibe. Having their songs guide you across these levels is honestly magical. Couple that with the art direction and the game's difficulty, and you get an experience that is one of a kind. Roaring across the underworld, hitting ollies and kickflips as I zoom past the red thorns, the constant presence of the moon reminding me of the skater's goal, and how there's always beauty in the hardest times. The ethereal sounds of Blood Culture's music, and the sound of the skater's body shattering into millions of pieces as I crash into a wall. I don't know, man. I don't think there's a game out there that really manages to capture the idea of overcoming hardship and trusting the process as Skate Story does. I could honestly keep talking about it, but that's just my experience of the journey, and I guess that means that you've got to chart your own and see the skater story for yourself. By now, I think my points should have come across pretty well, I hope. I don't think endings are entirely unnecessary. They are vital in a lot of cases. Games like Final Fantasy XV wouldn't have stuck with me as much as they have if it weren't for their well-told conclusions, but sometimes you just need the game to soak in. Just you and the game getting to know each other. The game gives you its tools and world, and a hint of a plot that keeps you going. You tag along, but because the plot is just a hint, that gives you the freedom to make your own story. So, although Skate Story for me personally does not have the strongest narrative like other games that I've played through, but the story that I experienced as I made my way through it is something that I'll keep with me for a long time. And with that, welcome to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed the video. I don't want to do simple YouTube outro things all the time, so feel free to do the usual things as YouTubers would tell you at the end of the video if you enjoyed it, meaning like the video if you did, comment down your thoughts below, dislike if you didn't like the video, and subscribe if you want to see more from me. I had a lot of fun writing this video, and I hope it shows. Didn't expect to write as much as I did about Skate Story, but hey, I really enjoyed the game, and if you want to hear me talk about it even more, don't worry, because I will, at some point. Not sure. Anyways, that'll be all for me. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Have a good rest of your day, night, and week, and with that, Storm out.